The room around you is quiet, suspended in a kind of stillness that feels almost untouched by time. Imagine stepping into a dimly lit archive just after closing hours, when the last researchers have already left and the hum of conversation has faded into silence. Only the soft buzz of distant fluorescent bulbs remains, mixing with a low whisper of an air vent somewhere deep in the walls. The temperature is cool, calm, and steady, a climate perfectly controlled to protect fragile documents, but also one that naturally slows your mind and your breathing. You walk deeper inside, past shelves of aging binders and metal cabinets with dented corners, until you reach a wooden table illuminated by a single desk lamp. Its warm glow forms a circle of gentle light on the tabletop, inviting you to sit, breathe, and explore the mysteries waiting within the pages. All around you, countless files slumber inside these drawers: declassified reports, handwritten testimonies, photocopies of radar logs, blurred photographs, and transcripts of conversations between pilots and command towers. These archives feel like a world separate from the noise of everyday life. They are a place where uncertainty is preserved rather than erased, and where stories that were once hidden behind government seals are allowed to breathe again. Tonight, as you settle into the chair, the silence becomes a comfortable companion. Your movements slow. Even the quiet slide of paper as you open the first folder seems to echo softly, as though the room is listening. These documents are part of a long tradition of Freedom of Information Act releases, the result of decades of requests, appeals, and persistence from researchers who believed that the public deserved transparency. The FOIA process itself is a story of patience. Long waits, redacted lines, missing pages, and occasional revelations that surprise even seasoned investigators. Some files arrive almost untouched, filled with raw eyewitness accounts. Others come heavily censored, entire paragraphs blacked out, leaving the imagination to drift through the gaps. Each folder is a mixture of what is known, what is suspected, and what remains stubbornly beyond explanation. As you sit with the first thick file open before you, the atmosphere encourages reflection. You can almost picture the individuals who originally filed these reports: pilots returning from missions, radar technicians squinting at anomalies on a screen, civilians trying to describe something they knew others might doubt. Their words carry not only the details of the events, but also the emotional weight of encountering something unfamiliar. Some reports contain precise measurements and calm descriptions. Others reveal confusion, awe, and a quiet struggle to make sense of what was seen. These human elements, preserved across years and decades, add layers of meaning that official summaries often fail to capture. Tonight's journey through these documents is not meant to startle or overwhelm. Instead, it is designed to draw you gently into the intersection of curiosity and serenity. There is a special kind of calm that comes from exploring mysteries without needing to solve them, simply letting them unfold at their own pace. As you turn the pages, you move deeper into stories that have puzzled governments, challenged conventional understanding, and quietly shaped cultural fascination with the unknown. It is in this blend of the factual and the mysterious that the mind finds room to wander, imagining possibilities while remaining anchored in the carefully recorded observations of real people. This moment in the archive is meant to feel like stepping into a hidden corner of history, one that asks nothing more of you than to listen and imagine. There is no urgency here, no frantic search for answers, only the quiet rhythm of discovery. Every document in this stack represents a puzzle piece whose shape doesn't fully match the pieces around it. Some fit almost perfectly with known events or technological explanations. Others resist categorization, their details lingering like soft impressions on the mind long after the page is closed. As you continue reading, your breathing naturally slows to match the gentle cadence of the narrative. The air feels slightly cooler as you lean forward, and the light from the lamp remains steady, casting soft golden edges on every unfolding page. With each sentence, the outside world drifts a little farther away, leaving only the calm presence of the archive and the slow, careful opening of the night's first file. You begin to sense the vastness of the mystery contained within these walls, and yet there is comfort in that vastness. Mystery can be a companion, a quiet presence that reminds you there is always more to explore, more to learn, and more to wonder about. In this peaceful environment, where the only sound is your own breath and the faint whisper of paper, the first UFO file of the evening waits to be revealed. You feel the weight of it in your hands, not heavy, but substantial, like something that carries decades of unanswered questions. Though the stories inside may involve extraordinary events, the tone remains grounded, measured, and calm. Tonight is not a night for decisions or conclusions. It is a night for observation, contemplation, and gentle curiosity. As you turn the next page, the mystery begins to open, inviting you to drift deeper into the unfolding quiet of the unknown. The night of December 9, 1965, settled over the small town of Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. Like any other winter evening, cold, still, and wrapped in the calm darkness familiar to rural communities. But somewhere high above, something unusual was already streaking across the sky, catching the attention of people hundreds of miles away. Witnesses from Canada to Ohio described a fiery object moving low and controlled, unlike the chaotic descent of a typical meteor. Some recalled a brilliant, almost copper-colored glow, while others spoke of a trail that seemed too deliberate, too stable. As the object approached the wooded hills near Kecksburg, the temperature dropped further, and the town prepared for another quiet night, unaware that within the hour, their landscape would be marked by one of the most debated UFO incidents in American history. When the object finally descended into the thicket, those who lived nearby felt a faint vibration underfoot, as though something heavy had entered the earth gently but with force. A handful of residents ventured outside, drawn by curiosity and an instinctive sense that something extraordinary had happened. They spoke of a glow emerging from the woods, a pulsing light that faded in and out through the bare winter trees. Some described a subtle warmth radiating from the direction of the impact, which contrasted with the crisp night air. Rumors spread quickly, and within minutes, the small community found itself unintentionally embroiled in a mystery that has persisted for decades. At first, most assumed a meteor had simply fallen nearby. It was a natural conclusion. Meteors occasionally make dramatic appearances, and the fiery trail seen by so many fit that familiar narrative. But what separated Kecksburg from ordinary meteor sightings was the speed with which authorities arrived. Firefighters, police, and then military personnel converged on the area in surprisingly coordinated fashion. Eyewitnesses later recounted how a barrier was quickly established around the woods, preventing locals from approaching. The quiet, slow rhythm of small-town life was interrupted by stern voices, military radio chatter, and the sudden appearance of large trucks on narrow roads. Those who lived closest claimed they saw men in uniform entering the forest with equipment, flashlights, measuring tools, and something resembling a large tarp. Others said they heard metallic clanking sounds, as though something heavy was being secured or moved. For a community accustomed to peaceful nights, this swift and serious reaction created a sense of tension. People gathered on porches and along roadside edges, watching silently as the military presence strengthened. Some residents recounted seeing a flatbed truck later emerge from the woods carrying an object covered tightly, its shape concealed beneath heavy cloth. The truck drove away slowly, guarded by escort vehicles. To many, it seemed clear that something more substantial than a meteor fragment had been retrieved. Officially, the explanation given was simple and familiar. A meteor had burned up in the atmosphere. NASA and the Air Force both supported this narrative, though not always consistently. There were gaps in reports, sudden reversals, and moments when documentation seemed to disappear or contradict earlier statements. For instance, NASA at one point claimed to have analyzed debris, but later asserted that relevant records had been lost in the 1980s. To researchers and locals alike, these inconsistencies added layers of intrigue rather than closure. Over the years, independent investigators dug deeper into the Kecksburg case, uncovering threads of possibility that stretched far beyond the initial meteor explanation. Some proposed that the object may have been a foreign satellite, specifically a Soviet probe returning to Earth. During the Cold War, such events were often shrouded in secrecy, and the retrieval of enemy technology would have been considered a high priority. Others argued that no known satellite or reentry vehicle matched the descriptions given by eyewitnesses. A few residents insisted they saw a distinctly shaped metallic object, acorn-like, with possible markings along its base. If accurate, this would suggest something far more unusual than a conventional space vehicle. Psychologists who examined mass sightings like this noted an interesting phenomenon. When multiple people observe an extraordinary event from different angles and distances, their descriptions often share more similarities than differences. In Kecksburg, that held true. Accounts from children, adults, and elderly witnesses all emphasized a controlled descent, a structured craft, and an unexpected military response. These overlapping details formed a core narrative that persisted through the decades, anchored by the memory of an entire community rather than a handful of isolated observers. As the official story remained unchanged, Kecksburg gradually became a symbol of unresolved government interactions with unexplained aerial events. The town itself adopted the mystery as part of its identity, hosting annual festivals and reenactments. But even amidst these traditions, many residents retained a sense of seriousness and respect for what happened that night. To them, the event was not a spectacle, but a moment when ordinary life intersected with something inexplicable. Sitting in the archival room, turning through pages that recount these testimonies, you can almost feel the cold December air and see the soft glow filtering through the trees. The documents present a striking contrast. Handwritten notes from frightened residents beside polished military reports denying any extraordinary activity. These contradictions create a quiet tension that lingers as you read, inviting you to form your own understanding. Yet, the atmosphere remains calm, just as the forest was calm after the object descended, still, quiet, and filled with unanswered questions. As you close the final page of the Kecksburg file, the mystery settles gently in your thoughts. You sense that this is only the beginning of a deeper journey into events where official explanations and eyewitness accounts diverge sharply. The room is silent once more, and the next file waits patiently on the table, ready to be opened whenever you're prepared to continue into the unknown. The winter of 1967 left the plains of Montana coated in frost, a quiet white stillness stretching across the landscape. Malmstrom Air Force Base sat in the middle of that silence, its underground missile silos spaced out across remote farmland and open fields. Each silo held a Minuteman ICBM, part of the United States nuclear deterrent during the most delicate years of the Cold War. Deep beneath the earth, launch officers monitored blinking consoles and steady indicator lights, maintaining a rhythm of calm vigilance. It was difficult, repetitive work, but essential, and the officers trained to maintain a perfectly even temperament, steady breathing, sharp attention, and absolute control. On most nights, nothing disturbed that routine. But the night of the shutdown would be remembered as one of the most unsettling in Malmstrom's history. It began with a radio call from security personnel stationed near one of the missile sites. Their voices were steady, but colored with an undercurrent of confusion. They described an object hovering silently near the perimeter, a glowing form that didn't fit the outline of any aircraft they knew. At first, the Launch Control Center regarded it as a possible misidentification. The Montana sky could play tricks on depth perception, especially in winter. But then the second call came, and then a third. Each reported the same thing, something luminous, structured, and quiet, moving with deliberate precision over the restricted area. Inside the underground control capsule, 2 officers monitored the situation while keeping their focus on the missile readiness indicators. These lights rarely changed, and when they did, it was usually due to scheduled tests or minor technical faults. But on this night, something different occurred. One by one, the indicators for multiple missiles shifted from green to an alarming shade of red, signaling that the missiles were no longer launch-ready. Entire systems had gone offline simultaneously, something that should have been nearly impossible. The officers immediately ran diagnostics, expecting to find a systems malfunction or a power surge. But the diagnostics revealed nothing typical. The missiles had shut down, but the cause was not something the console could identify. Above ground, security teams continued to report sightings. Some described the object as a glowing orb. Others claimed it had a structured shape with defined edges. A few accounts mentioned that the object seemed to pulse with soft, rhythmic light. Despite these unusual characteristics, it made no sound. Its movements were slow and controlled, almost as if observing the facility. The tension among personnel grew not from fear, but from the sheer strangeness of the situation. Trained observers witnessing something they could not categorize, while their most critical infrastructure malfunctioned at the same time. When the shutdowns reached a total of 10 missiles, the officers in the control center knew the event was unprecedented. Backup systems remained functional, yet the primary guidance and control functions were unresponsive. The Air Force had strict protocols for such events, and technical teams were quickly dispatched to the silos. They worked methodically in the freezing air, examining wiring, power conduits, and electronic panels. They found no signs of damage, tampering, or electrical anomalies. Everything appeared normal, except the systems themselves had somehow been neutralized. Officially, the Air Force would later attribute the event to a technical fault, possibly caused by a power fluctuation or electronic glitch. But for those who were there, that explanation never matched what they witnessed. A malfunction might have affected one missile, perhaps even two, but 10 of them, all at once, in coordination with a strange aerial presence? The correlation felt too strong to dismiss. Several officers, years later, came forward to speak about what they experienced, though many waited until retirement, knowing that discussing such events publicly could jeopardize their careers. The psychology of military whistleblowers adds a layer of complexity to the story. These individuals are trained to follow protocol, avoid speculation, and protect classified information. For them to come forward means the event left an imprint too significant to keep silent. Some described recounting the night repeatedly in their minds, trying to separate memory from possibility. Yet the details remain consistent. The sudden shutdown of missiles, the strange craft overhead, and the puzzling lack of technical explanation afterward. Historically, the Cold War period was filled with incidents where national security concerns overshadowed transparency. Any unexplained aerial intrusion over a nuclear facility would have triggered intense secrecy. The fear was not of extraterrestrials, but of foreign adversaries, possibly deploying new surveillance technology or advanced aircraft. This context helps explain why such events often remained unaddressed in official channels. Admitting vulnerability, especially near nuclear weapons, was unthinkable for military leadership at the time. As investigators later reviewed the Malmstrom case, they found that documentation was sparse, fragmented, or incomplete. Some reports existed only in unofficial memos or recollections. And yet, the event stands out because of the credibility of those involved, trained officers, technicians, and security personnel whose accounts aligned far more than they diverged. Even skeptics struggled to produce a convincing explanation for the simultaneous missile shutdowns. Electronic interference was suggested, but tests failed to replicate the conditions. Power surges were theorized, but no evidence supported them. The phenomenon remained unresolved. Reading through the archived testimonies in the quiet research room, you can almost feel the tension the launch officers must have felt, deep underground, surrounded by blinking lights, listening to security teams describe something unidentifiable moving through the night sky. And yet, there is a calmness in the way their accounts were written, as if their training kept their fear at bay, replacing panic with disciplined observation. Each document carries a sense of measured confusion, a professional tone grappling with an event that refused to fit into the usual categories of military experience. As you close the file, the weight of the incident lingers gently in your mind, not as a threat, but as a reminder of how much remains unexplained, even in the most controlled environments. The silence of the archive deepens. Another folder waits on the table, inviting you to continue into the next chapter of this quiet journey through the unknown. The night skies of Belgium in late 1989 were unusually clear, The stars scattered across the cold winter horizon, calm and distant. Yet over several months, something extraordinary began to draw attention from ordinary citizens, police officers, and military personnel alike, a phenomenon that would later be called the Belgian UFO wave. It started with reports of strange, silent, triangular-shaped lights moving slowly across the sky. Witnesses described them as enormous, yet perfectly balanced in motion, often hovering or making sudden, sharp turns that defied conventional aircraft behavior. The initial reports trickled into local authorities, who, intrigued and concerned, began logging sightings, only to discover that this was no ordinary series of misidentifications. The phenomenon was persistent, intelligent in appearance, and meticulously recorded by multiple observers. Local police reports provided some of the clearest documentation. Officers often encountered these lights during routine patrols, observing them for minutes at a time. The shapes were consistently described as large triangles with lights at each corner, and sometimes a larger central light, moving silently over forests, roads, and small villages. Radar stations corroborated many of these sightings, showing objects moving at speeds and altitudes inconsistent with known aircraft. Even the Belgian Air Force became involved, scrambling F-16s to intercept the objects. Pilots reported attempting to approach the craft, only to find that they accelerated or changed direction in ways that conventional planes could not match. This convergence of civilian, military, and radar observation made the case uniquely compelling, bridging anecdotal experience and measurable evidence. The historical context of this period adds subtle layers of intrigue. Belgium, as a NATO member, maintained advanced radar infrastructure and an engaged air force. Any unidentified object detected over its airspace would have raised immediate security concerns. Yet the government's response was methodical rather than alarmist. Investigators meticulously documented sightings, interviewed witnesses, and recorded radar tracks, leaving a substantial paper trail that would later be declassified. Unlike many other incidents of the era, which were often dismissed or buried, the Belgian wave demonstrated a rare willingness to collect evidence rigorously, even while maintaining public calm. Psychologists and researchers studying these events have noted the unusual consistency in eyewitness testimony. Across hundreds of reports, observers described shapes, movements, and lighting patterns that matched remarkably well despite being separated by distance and circumstance. This consistency challenges explanations that rely solely on perceptual error or misidentified aircraft. Some proposed atmospheric phenomena, such as lenticular clouds or reflections, but these could not account for structured triangular forms appearing in multiple locations simultaneously. The phenomenon prompted debates not only about the object themselves, but also about how human perception can recognize and record patterns in unfamiliar stimuli, and how mass sightings influence collective memory. Cultural impact also played a role in shaping public perception. Media coverage in Belgium and neighboring countries reported the sightings in measured tones, avoiding sensationalism while still highlighting their strangeness. This careful reporting allowed communities to remain calm while maintaining curiosity. The repeated appearances of the objects became a part of local lore, inspiring artists, writers, and researchers to explore the interplay between human imagination and observed phenomena. Unlike fleeting flashes in the sky, the Belgian wave unfolded gradually, giving the nation time to absorb and reflect on the events rather than react in panic. As you read through the declassified files in the quiet, lamp-lit archive, the tension between what was observed and what could be explained becomes palpable. Police logs describe officers standing in frozen fields, their breath misting in the night air as enormous lights moved silently above. Radar data charts, slightly yellowed and neatly annotated, indicate objects moving with unusual acceleration and trajectory. Pilots' testimonies describe attempts to approach, only to find the craft vanishing or suddenly repositioning. Each piece of evidence adds texture, a soft layering of observation and measurement that creates a complex mosaic of mystery. It is a puzzle in which each observation reinforces the impression that something intelligent and deliberate is at work. The calmness of the night contrasts with the strangeness of the events. Forests remain still, roads are empty, and the stars above seem indifferent to human curiosity. Yet for those who witnessed the lights, time slowed as they tried to comprehend what they were seeing. The documentation reflects this. Observers noted not only the physical details, but also their own internal reactions: wonder, hesitation, and cautious awe. Unlike reports that emerge after sudden or violent incidents, the Belgian sightings carry a rhythm, a quiet persistence that mirrors the patient unfolding of night itself. As you gently turn the pages of these files, you notice patterns emerging. The objects appeared near population centers, yet avoided causing harm. Movements suggested awareness of observers without aggression. Reports spanning months describe identical shapes and behaviors, implying either the presence of unknown aerial technology or a phenomenon that defies conventional classification. The overlap between civilian, police, and military observation provides a rare convergence of credibility, lending a weight that few UFO cases achieve. Sitting back in the archive, the quiet hum of the lamp and the soft rustle of paper complement the details of the sightings, allowing the mind to absorb the mystery without urgency. There is a subtle tension, an acknowledgement that even with data, measurements, and multiple testimonies, the objects remain unexplained. Yet the calm setting transforms this tension into gentle curiosity, a slow unraveling of the unknown that encourages contemplation rather than fear. The files close softly, leaving behind the lingering image of silent triangles gliding over winter fields, a quiet reminder that even in the stillest nights, the sky can hold secrets beyond ordinary perception. The Hudson Valley in New York has always been a place of quiet beauty. Rolling hills, dense forests, and rivers reflecting the soft glow of the moon. In the early 1980s, however, this serene landscape became the stage for one of the most enduring mysteries in modern ufology. Residents began reporting strange, massive lights in the sky, often described as hovering silently over valleys and towns late at night. Unlike fleeting flashes or single-point observations, these objects were enormous, triangular in shape, and moved with a deliberate, measured grace. Some witnesses claimed the lights were arranged at the corners of a dark, silent craft, a form that seemed engineered rather than natural. The calm rhythm of the night made the slow appearance of these lights even more mesmerizing, capturing attention without inciting panic. Eyewitness accounts from multiple decades converge on a series of recurring patterns. People described seeing a dark triangular form, sometimes spanning hundreds of feet across, with lights at each corner. The craft moved slowly, gliding above treetops, fields, and rivers, often accompanied by a faint humming sound that was barely audible but perceptible in the still night air. Unlike typical aircraft, it made no routine engine noise, left no contrails, and displayed no navigation lights consistent with aviation standards. These details, repeated across independent sightings, created a compelling sense of continuity, suggesting that observers were encountering the same type of phenomenon rather than isolated illusions or misidentifications. The historical context of the Hudson Valley sightings is also significant. The 1980s were a period of increasing awareness about experimental aircraft, stealth technology, and classified military projects. Some skeptics suggested that these lights were ultralight aircraft, blimps, or secret government projects being tested at night. Yet these explanations often failed to match the sheer size and behavior of the objects described. Radar data from local airports and military installations occasionally corroborated the presence of unidentified aerial activity, though official statements frequently downplayed these observations or attributed them to conventional aviation. The tension between recorded evidence and official dismissal became a defining characteristic of the Hudson Valley phenomenon. Psychologically, these sightings illustrate how mass observations influence human perception. Many witnesses reported seeing the lights independently, but described remarkably similar shapes, sizes, and flight patterns. Researchers studying perception under low-light conditions note that while memory can be fallible, repeated and independent accounts from different locations strengthen credibility. In addition, the quiet, repetitive nature of the sightings, moving slowly through the night sky without immediate threat, allowed observers to absorb details carefully, resulting in highly consistent testimonies. This consistency, paired with documented radar data, distinguishes the Hudson Valley incidents from fleeting or ambiguous reports often dismissed as hoaxes or misperceptions. Culturally, the Hudson Valley sightings captured public imagination in ways that were unique to the region. Local media reported sightings cautiously, emphasizing the testimonies of residents while avoiding sensationalism. Over time, these reports became embedded in regional folklore, inspiring community discussions, amateur investigations, and even artistic interpretations of the mysterious triangular lights. The craft itself became a symbol, representing the intersection of the ordinary and the extraordinary, a silent presence that moved above familiar landscapes, evoking awe rather than fear. The calm nocturnal environment, with quiet forests and gently flowing rivers, enhanced the ethereal quality of the experiences, making them as much about mood and atmosphere as about the physical object themselves. Official investigations into these sightings often encountered limitations. Law enforcement officers, amateur researchers, and local enthusiasts compiled extensive logs, including sketches, photographs, and notes on light behavior. Yet when these reports reached higher-level military or aviation authorities, they were frequently categorized as unidentified aerial phenomena, without further explanation. The lack of resolution contributed to an enduring sense of mystery. Even decades later, the Hudson Valley continues to draw interest from researchers, UFO enthusiasts, and anyone captivated by the tension between credible observation and unexplained occurrence. Each sighting is framed not just as an anomaly, but as a quiet interaction between human awareness and something larger, possibly intelligent, in the night sky. Reading the collected documents now in a softly lit archive brings the details vividly to life. You can imagine walking through a silent field at night, the air cool against your skin, when a soft, triangular glow emerges in the distance. Its movements are deliberate yet mesmerizing, and the scale seems impossible at first. You notice the consistency of reports across towns, the meticulous notes of officers and researchers, and the subtle contradictions in official explanations. The papers convey more than just facts. They preserve the mood, the slow unfolding of mystery under starlit skies, and the wonder experienced by those who saw the craft with their own eyes. As you turn the pages, the quiet rhythm of these sightings becomes almost meditative. The glowing triangles glide above farms, forests, and rivers, creating a sense of stillness punctuated by curiosity. The observer's experiences, careful, measured, and sincere, offer a bridge between the known and the unknown. Each account invites reflection. The skies remain vast and enigmatic, and even when recorded meticulously, the objects maintain an air of intelligent, deliberate presence. The Hudson Valley, with its quiet nights and rolling landscapes, becomes more than a location. It becomes a lens through which the mysterious and the everyday coexist. Closing the file, the images and testimonies linger softly in the mind. The night remains calm, the air still, yet there is a gentle awareness of something just beyond ordinary perception. The story does not demand resolution, only attention. And in that calm attention, a sense of wonder arises, encouraging the mind to rest while keeping the quiet intrigue alive, ready to continue into the next chapter of unexplained phenomena. The dense rainforests and remote islands of northern Brazil have always carried a quiet, mysterious energy. But in the late 1970s, that stillness was punctuated by events that would become known as the Collar's Encounters. Residents of this small Amazonian island community began reporting unusual aerial lights at night, bright orbs that seemed to move with intelligence and purpose. Unlike fleeting phenomena, these lights often hovered close to the ground and appeared to interact directly with people. Witnesses spoke of sensations of burns, puncture-like marks, and sudden weakness after prolonged exposure to the lights. The events were alarming enough that the local authorities, initially skeptical, contacted the military, setting in motion an official investigation that was both detailed and unusual for its time. The Brazilian Air Force launched what came to be called Project Prado, an effort to systematically document and understand the phenomena. Officers were dispatched to interview residents, photograph the objects, and even attempt to intercept the lights with conventional aircraft. The reports were meticulous, noting the size, speed, and behavior of the objects, as well as the physical effects experienced by those who had direct encounters. Some documents described beams of light that seemed to target individuals, leaving marks that were medically examined and verified. This attention to physical evidence lent credibility to the encounters, distinguishing them from mere anecdotal reports or mass hysteria. Historical context deepens the intrigue. Brazil was under a military regime at the time, a government known for both strict control and careful documentation of perceived threats. Rather than dismissing or suppressing the reports outright, the military treated them as serious, logging data, interviewing multiple witnesses, and producing detailed reports that were later archived. This approach contrasts with many other nations' handling of UFO phenomena, where files often went undisclosed or were heavily redacted. The caller's encounters thus offer a rare glimpse into how a structured, official investigation approached events that straddled the line between unexplained aerial phenomena and direct interaction with humans. Eyewitness psychology also plays a critical role in understanding these events. The residents were not previously inclined toward sensationalism. They were ordinary people living quiet lives in small, isolated communities. The consistency of their accounts, multiple independent witnesses describing similar lights, behaviors, and effects, lends weight to their testimonies. Researchers later noted that prolonged exposure to anomalous stimuli, combined with the stress of nighttime encounters, can sharpen memory rather than distort it, particularly when multiple observers reinforce each other's recollections. The records show a community grappling with the unknown, maintaining composure while navigating fear, uncertainty, and awe. The visual characteristics of the lights themselves were remarkable. Witnesses described orbs of varying colors, red, blue, and white, that appeared to maneuver with intelligence, sometimes following boats on the river or hovering near houses. The objects' movements were deliberate. They could accelerate rapidly, pause midair, and change direction abruptly. Officers attempting to track them with aircraft and radar found the behavior inexplicable by conventional physics or meteorology. Sketches included in the reports depict spherical or disc-shaped lights, often surrounded by faint halos, and the consistency across independent observations is striking. These images, coupled with documented physical effects, elevate the caller's encounters beyond mere anecdote, positioning them as one of the most tangible and well-documented series of UFO events in history. Cultural implications also emerge when considering these encounters. The caller's events entered local lore almost immediately, shaping community, identity, and storytelling for years to come. Yet the atmosphere of calm and cautious investigation allowed the narrative to remain grounded rather than sensationalized. The interplay between the serene Amazonian nights, the quiet diligence of military investigators, and the community's first-hand experiences created a unique environment where mystery and observation coexisted peacefully. This calm attention to detail, even amid startling events, mirrors the gentle pacing that allows the mind to explore the unknown without alarm. When reading the translated project protofiles, the careful methodology stands out. Notes describe each witness interview in measured tones. Photographs capture lights moving across the darkened skies, and officer sketches illustrate shapes that remain consistent from multiple viewpoints. Even the medical reports of burns and puncture marks are recorded clinically, reinforcing the credibility of the accounts. The juxtaposition of extraordinary events with professional systematic documentation creates a narrative that is both astonishing and remarkably grounded, offering a slow, compelling immersion into the mystery. Sitting with these records, one can almost feel the humid Amazonian night, the quiet river reflecting distant stars, and the sudden, ethereal illumination of a strange light above the treetops. The observer's careful attention and detailed descriptions allow the reader to follow the events step by step, creating a meditative rhythm. The story is not rushed. The phenomena unfold gradually, letting the mind absorb the calm of the environment alongside the intrigue of what was occurring. There is a balance between factual recording, human reaction, and the quiet wonder of encountering something completely unknown. As the final pages of Project Prado are gently closed, the lingering image is one of careful observation in the midst of the inexplicable. The lights of colors fade in the imagination, leaving behind the memory of a community quietly confronting the mysterious, guided by methodical investigation and personal courage. The events, though unresolved, offer a profound example of how human perception, official documentation, and environmental calm can combine to preserve a night of wonder and unexplained phenomena, leaving a subtle impression that remains vivid long after the files are set aside. The quiet forests and rolling fields of Suffolk County, England, in December 1980, were the backdrop to an event that would later be called the Rendlesham Forest Incident. It was a series of occurrences spanning several nights near a military installation, where the U.S. Air Force maintained personnel in support of NATO operations. The forest itself seemed serene, its bare trees standing like sentinels in the cold winter air, yet the stillness was punctuated by reports of strange lights descending among the trees. Multiple officers, trained to observe and respond to unexpected events, reported unusual phenomena. Glowing orbs moving through the forest, strange impressions in the ground, and lights that defied conventional understanding. These were not fleeting glimpses, but sustained interactions that invited careful documentation. The historical context adds depth to the narrative. At the time, the Cold War was in full swing, and U.S. personnel stationed abroad were accustomed to maintaining heightened vigilance. Nuclear-capable missiles were stored in nearby facilities, making security a top priority. Anomalous aerial activity near these sites could not be ignored. Reports suggest that over several nights, lights were observed entering the forest, and teams were dispatched to investigate, carrying flashlights, cameras, and recording devices. The interaction was methodical, a careful balance between professional duty and human curiosity, as personnel tried to reconcile what they saw with the constraints of known technology. Eyewitness accounts form the core of the Rendlesham Forest story. Multiple officers described triangular or pyramid-like shapes, metallic in appearance, with glowing panels or lights along their surfaces. Some reported being touched by beams of light or experiencing physical sensations, including a feeling of static electricity. Notes and sketches taken at the time show the observers attempting to catalog size, shape, and movement, producing remarkably consistent details across independent accounts. Unlike many UFO sightings that rely on single observers, this event involved trained personnel, adding a layer of credibility. The calm demeanor of the witnesses, their systematic approach, and their repeated observations create a picture of serious, deliberate documentation rather than panic or imagination. Technical documentation also played a role. Photographs, although blurred and partially obscured, show strange points of light within the forest. Footprints or impressions in soft ground were cataloged and photographed, adding a physical dimension to the otherwise visual phenomena. Measurements of radiation in the area were reportedly higher than background levels, although results were modest and debated. What emerges from these records is a detailed mosaic. Lights, shapes, impressions, and physical evidence that together resist simple explanations. The materials and techniques used by the personnel demonstrate professionalism, providing a sense of calm rigor even amid inexplicable circumstances. Psychologically, the Rendlesham Forest events illustrate how trained observers respond under unusual conditions. Officers were instructed to maintain composure, follow protocols, and record observations meticulously. Their behavior suggests a deliberate effort to separate fact from fear, resulting in documentation that remains highly credible decades later. Researchers note that repeated exposure to a novel stimulus in a familiar environment, combined with professional training, can enhance memory precision. In Rendlesham, the repeated nights of observation allowed witnesses to compare events, refine their notes, and produce a coherent sequence of interactions that remain remarkably consistent over time. Cultural impact also plays a role in understanding the incident. The forest became an emblematic location within modern UFO lore, representing a tangible intersection between military observation and the unexplained. Local communities and international researchers were drawn to the site, studying sketches, photographs, and testimonies. The narrative of the forest at night, silent, dark, and punctuated by glowing objects, has inspired stories, documentaries, and analyses that attempt to reconcile human experience with the unknown. The calm, persistent rhythm of the sightings, paired with methodical documentation, allows the story to be engaging without sensationalizing it, preserving both mystery and credibility. As the archival files are reviewed, the details emerge in a meditative cadence. Officer sketches depict angular shapes softly illuminated, while notes capture movement and reactions. The forest itself becomes almost a character, a quiet stage against which extraordinary events unfold. The documents do not rush the story. Instead, they allow the phenomena to reveal themselves gradually, encouraging reflection and observation. Even when measurements and photographs fail to offer complete explanation, the combined weight of testimony, consistency, and physical traces sustains a sense of intrigue. Sitting with the reports, one can almost hear the soft crunch of leaves beneath boots, the distant hum of alert radios, and the occasional flicker of a strange light through bare branches. Captivate the imagination. The clear skies over Phoenix, Arizona, on the evening of March 13, 1997, held a quiet tension that went largely unnoticed at first. Residents were settling into their homes, the desert air cool and calm, when thousands began noticing unusual lights moving silently across the night sky. Unlike fleeting meteor trails or commercial aircraft, these formations stretched over miles, glowing with a steady intensity. They appeared in a series of V-shaped formations, hovering low and moving slowly over neighborhoods and highways. People described a mixture of awe and curiosity, watching the lights with careful attention, noting their scale and silence. The event would later be called the Phoenix Lights, becoming one of the most widely observed and documented mass sightings in modern UFO history. What set the Phoenix Lights apart was not just the number of observers, but the consistency of their reports. Thousands of independent witnesses, residents, pilots, and even some law enforcement officers described similar triangular shapes with lights at each corner. The formations moved deliberately, sometimes pausing midair, suggesting a level of control beyond conventional aircraft. Witnesses noted the absence of engine noise, contrails, or any navigational lights typically associated with airplanes or helicopters. The calm desert night, still and quiet, allowed observers to focus intently, noticing subtle details that might have been missed in busier environments. This shared experience across a vast area contributed to the credibility and enduring intrigue of the sightings. Historical context deepens the significance of the event. The 1990s saw increasing awareness of experimental military aircraft, stealth technology, and advanced aerial programs. Skeptics proposed that the lights were flares dropped during training exercises, yet many witnesses and researchers challenged this explanation. Flares move differently from the slow, controlled motion described, and their light diminishes rapidly, unlike the steady illumination observed over Phoenix. Additionally, official statements often conflicted with eyewitness reports, creating a subtle tension between institutional explanation and human observation. The phenomenon became a focal point for discussions about transparency, perception, and the limits of conventional understanding. Psychologically, the mass nature of the sighting offers important insights. Individuals experiencing unusual phenomena in isolation often struggle to interpret what they see, but shared observations across thousands of witnesses reinforce consistency and detail. The Phoenix Lights demonstrated how a widespread, calm observation can produce remarkably aligned testimonies. Researchers in perception and memory note that when people observe slowly unfolding, non-threatening events, their recollections tend to be more detailed and precise. In Phoenix, witnesses consistently described formation shape, number of lights, movement, and silent behavior, despite geographic separation and varied vantage points. Cultural impact of the Phoenix Lights was immediate and long-lasting. The event was covered extensively in local and national media, though reporting was measured emphasizing the scale of observations rather than sensational claims. Residents shared their experiences with neighbors, journalists, and eventually researchers, creating a collective memory that has persisted for decades. The lights themselves became iconic, representing not fear, but wonder, curiosity, and a quiet reminder that the skies can hold the unexpected. Community engagement was strong, with many returning to the desert to trace the paths of the lights, photograph the night sky, and discuss the event, ensuring the phenomenon remained part of local and national consciousness. Official investigations added complexity to the story. Some explanations included military training flares or aircraft exercises, but no definitive evidence fully reconciled the observations with these claims. Pilots in the region reported objects behaving in ways inconsistent with known aircraft. Radar data was inconclusive, but hinted at unidentified objects moving with unusual coordination. These inconsistencies mirrored patterns seen in other documented UFO cases, where human observation, partial physical data, and official statements intersect, sometimes in tension, sometimes in complement. The combination of careful observation and unresolved explanation created a scenario that encouraged reflection rather than alarm. Reading through collected accounts and reports in a quiet archive evokes the calm tension of that evening. You can imagine standing in a desert backyard, the air cool against your skin, the distant lights of a city softened by darkness, when the V-shaped formations glide silently overhead. There is a sense of scale that is both humbling and meditative, a deliberate rhythm in the movement of lights that encourages slow, attentive observation. Witnesses' detailed notes, sketches, and photographs allow the reader to trace each motion, from the slow glide to the pause and shift in direction, capturing both the physical and emotional dimensions of the event. The Phoenix Lights also illustrate the intersection of perception, community, and mystery. The calm attention of thousands of observers allowed details to emerge that might have been missed in hurried or chaotic circumstances. The night sky became a canvas of subtle motion and quiet wonder, each light a point of curiosity that invited observation without panic. Even decades later, revisiting the reports encourages a gentle engagement with the unknown, fostering reflection rather than immediate judgment or fear. The desert night remains serene in memory, yet filled with a lingering sense of deliberate, unexplained phenomena. Closing the file leaves a quiet impression. The formation of lights slowly disappears into the imagination, leaving only the memory of a collective, calm observation and the subtle awe it inspired. There is no need for conclusion, only reflection on the persistence of mystery in ordinary environments. The Phoenix Lights, with their silent motion and mass witness credibility, embody a gentle reminder that even in familiar skies, the unexpected can quietly reveal itself, inviting attentive, relaxed consideration of what lies beyond the ordinary. By the early 2000s, the conversation surrounding unidentified aerial phenomena had begun to shift. Reports were no longer confined to local newspapers or small research journals. They reached global audiences, fueled by the rise of the internet, social media, and unprecedented access to previously classified information. Among the most notable developments were the encounters reported by United States Navy pilots between 2004 and 2014. These incidents involved advanced aircraft sensors detecting objects that defied conventional explanations, blips on radar, infrared signatures, and video footage released by the Pentagon years later. Unlike older reports, which relied primarily on eyewitness testimony, these encounters included corroborating technological data, providing a modern, multidimensional perspective on phenomena that had long been relegated to anecdotal status. One of the most striking aspects of these encounters was the apparent capability of the objects to maneuver in ways that challenge our current understanding of physics. Pilots reported sudden acceleration, abrupt changes in direction, and the ability to hover without detectable propulsion. Infrared footage captured objects moving against prevailing winds at high speed, with no discernible engine signatures. Radar confirmed their presence in multiple locations simultaneously. The objects were consistently described as solid, with discernible shape and mass, yet behaving in ways that no known aircraft could replicate. For trained pilots, accustomed to judging speed, distance, and trajectory, these observations carried a weight of credibility difficult to dismiss. The historical backdrop provides context for why these reports gained particular attention. By this period, the Pentagon had begun establishing programs specifically to study unidentified aerial phenomena, recognizing the potential national security implications. The Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, later publicly acknowledged, documented, and analyzed these encounters with rigorous protocols. Unlike earlier decades, when UFO reports were often dismissed or declassified decades later, the Navy incidents were studied in real time, with official acknowledgement of uncertainty. This represented a significant shift in institutional engagement, demonstrating a willingness to examine phenomena methodically rather than dismiss them outright. Psychologically, these encounters highlight how trained observers respond to the unknown. Pilots are conditioned to evaluate threats quickly, make split-second decisions, and distinguish between environmental effects and mechanical anomalies. That such individuals reported confusion, surprise, and persistent uncertainty underscores the anomalous nature of the objects. Researchers note that when experienced observers encounter stimuli that do not fit established categories, their perception and reporting tend to be precise and detailed. This aligns with the multiple Navy accounts, which describe consistent object behavior, corroborated by radar and infrared data, suggesting that the observations were not the result of misperception or hysteria. The cultural impact of the Navy encounters cannot be understated. The release of videos, commonly referred to as Fleur 1, Gimbal, and Go Fast, brought the conversation into mainstream awareness. News outlets, online forums, and social media amplified the discussion, encouraging both expert analysis and widespread speculation. Unlike the Phoenix Lights or Rendlesham Forest, these events were documented in high-definition video with multiple sources of corroboration. The public engagement fostered a global dialogue on the nature of aerial anomalies, transparency, and the limits of human knowledge, transforming UFOs into a subject that intersects science, security, and societal curiosity. Official statements added a layer of credibility while maintaining ambiguity. The Department of Defense and Navy confirmed that the objects were unidentified and acknowledged their study under formal programs. Congressional hearings in the United States further highlighted the serious attention given to UAPs, with pilots testifying under oath about encounters they could not explain. This convergence of first-hand experience, sensor data, and governmental acknowledgement created an unprecedented level of legitimacy, bridging gaps that had long separated anecdotal reports from formal investigation. Reading through the released footage, declassified reports, and pilot interviews in a quiet archive evokes the tension and calm simultaneously. One can almost sense the dark skies over open ocean or training ranges, the soft hum of a cockpit, and the sudden, inexplicable movement of a silent object against the horizon. The calm precision of pilots' observations, paired with objective instrument readings, allows the mind to trace the events carefully, appreciating both their ordinary and extraordinary qualities. Unlike dramatic, chaotic incidents, the encounters unfold gradually, inviting reflection rather than alarm. The Navy UAP encounters also illustrate the interplay between perception, technology, and institutional scrutiny. Sensors record phenomena that human eyes may only partially perceive, while trained observers interpret those readings in real time. This multidimensional approach, combining visual, infrared, and radar data, creates a richer understanding of events while preserving their mystery. The calm, methodical tone of the reports encourages the reader to consider possibilities thoughtfully, without rushing to conclusions or sensationalism. As the files are set aside, the lingering impression is one of measured wonder. Objects that defy conventional explanation appear silently across oceans, observed with precision, recorded with clarity, yet remain unresolved. There is no final answer, only careful documentation and persistent questions. The calm rhythm of observation, the quiet acknowledgement of the unknown, and the deliberate attention of trained professionals create a space for reflection, curiosity, and contemplation. In this modern era, the sky remains a quiet stage for mystery, encouraging a gentle engagement with phenomena that continue to intrigue, challenge, and inspire. As the final pages of the archived files are turned, a subtle calm settles in the room. A quiet space with a vast tapestry of unexplained phenomena can be absorbed without urgency. After decades of documented sightings, from Kecksburg to Malmstrom, from Rendlesham Forest to the Phoenix Lights, and into the modern Navy encounters, a pattern emerges that is less about immediate answers and more about the steady persistence of mystery. Across continents, decades, and cultures, ordinary observers, trained professionals, and entire communities have reported glimpses of something beyond conventional understanding. These accounts, meticulously recorded, show a recurring interplay between human perception, environmental context, and phenomena that challenge the boundaries of knowledge. Reflection reveals the delicate balance between skepticism and wonder. Official reports often provide explanations: meteors, experimental aircraft, misperception, or atmospheric anomalies. Yet alongside these accounts exist testimonies that resist categorization. Pilots, radar operators, and multiple independent witnesses describe behaviors inconsistent with known technology. Physical traces, impressions in soil, unexplained radiation readings, and detailed photographs add tangible dimensions to the narrative. The coexistence of measured observation and inexplicable occurrences invites a contemplative approach, one that allows the mind to engage with the unknown gently rather than fearfully. Cultural and psychological dimensions also emerge in this quiet contemplation. Across decades and regions, human fascination with unexplained aerial phenomena has shaped literature, art, and folklore, embedding mystery into collective consciousness. Communities organize festivals, researchers compile meticulous logs, and ordinary citizens recall moments of quiet wonder. Psychology suggests that when a phenomenon is observed repeatedly, with calm attention and minimal threat, memory is often detailed and precise. This principle applies across the range of incidents, from the structured observations of Malmstrom officers to the awe-inspired descriptions of residents watching the Phoenix Lights. The repeated theme is one of attentive observation, a steady, calm human curiosity encountering something extraordinary. Historical threads further enrich the perspective. Many events unfolded during periods of geopolitical tension: the Cold War, the 1980s technological race, and modern national security concerns. Military personnel and government agencies often became involuntary participants, documenting anomalies while balancing the imperatives of secrecy and protocol. In each case, there is a subtle rhythm, the ordinary flow of life interrupted by something remarkable observed, recorded, and sometimes explained, yet ultimately leaving a space for continued inquiry. These incidents illustrate not only the phenomenon itself, but also how human institutions respond to events that defy conventional frameworks, blending caution, curiosity, and occasional perplexity. Reading these files, one becomes attuned to the small, almost meditative details. The cool hush of an archive, the gentle rustle of paper, and the soft glow of a desk lamp echo the calm of nighttime observations in distant forests, deserts, and skies. Witnesses often describe moments when the world seemed suspended: lights hovering silently over trees, orbs gliding across rivers, or formations moving across a desert sky. In these descriptions, there is a shared tempo, a slow unfolding that encourages attention without urgency. The quiet cadence allows for reflection, a mental space in which wonder can coexist with rational consideration. Modern investigations add layers of complexity and credibility. Sensor data, infrared footage, and radar tracking provide objective measurements that complement eyewitness accounts. Programs such as the Pentagon's UAP Task Force demonstrate that even in contemporary contexts, unexplained phenomena are approached systematically, merging empirical observation with human testimony. The blending of technology and perception underscores an important theme. The unknown is not inherently chaotic or threatening. Instead, it is observed, recorded, and reflected upon with care, creating a bridge between ordinary experience and extraordinary events. Yet despite decades of documentation, definitive explanations remain elusive. The common thread across all incidents is uncertainty paired with meticulous observation. The Kecksburg object may have been a meteor, a satellite, or something else entirely. Malmstrom missiles shut down for reasons unexplained by conventional mechanics. Rendlesham Forest, the Hudson Valley, Collars, the Phoenix Lights, and Navy encounters all present similar intersections of credible observation and anomaly. This enduring ambiguity, rather than causing frustration, fosters a calm form of curiosity, an invitation to explore, imagine, and reflect without the need for immediate resolution. Closing the final folder, the quiet of the room mirrors the calm of the night skies captured in these reports. The mind drifts through deserts, forests, rivers, and open skies, tracing the movement of lights, the impressions of observers, and the careful notes of those who recorded events. There is a subtle serenity in acknowledging that some mysteries persist beyond explanation, that wonder does not require closure, and that the act of observation itself, quiet, deliberate, and attentive, can be as profound as the phenomena observed. The overarching lesson is a gentle one. Mystery is not a threat, but a companion. Across decades and geographies, humans have engaged with the unknown calmly and thoughtfully, preserving testimony, conducting investigations, and reflecting on what cannot yet be explained. There is beauty in this interplay between the known and the unknown, the ordinary and the extraordinary. As the lamp's glow fades and the papers are set aside, one is left with a sense of peace, an awareness of vast skies, silent forests, and quiet deserts, all spaces where the unexplained lingers gently, inviting contemplation, imagination, and the serene pleasure of wonder.